welcome to your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Massive changes are coming to the Quest and Oculus software in general that are going to affect millions of Oculus users. Quest 2 gets the V42 update, the Valve Index now has a wireless accessory that's pretty expensive, and more info on Meta's next VR headset. All that and so much more, let's just get right into the news. So let's start off on something pretty interesting. Recently, a report popped up that a very real Halo VR game was in development by 343. Codenamed Reverie, this was a full-on Halo VR game that was in the early stages of development, and was supposed to feature a full-on story mode with players playing as Master Chief. And we even got to see some of the concept art, which actually looks pretty awesome. However, 343's narrative director states that the idea never really left the concept stage, as it didn't really make sense for the studio because of the unique challenges of making a good VR game, and the small user base at the time really didn't make the project financially viable. Stating, quote, "Especially in 2017, there were a lot of hard challenges to overcome with VR. Most prominently, the fact that it was only available to a small subset of people," end quote. Which actually reminds me of the video I just made last week where I talked about those exact kind of issues in VR game development. But this still looks really cool, and I think Halo in VR is something I'm always going to want. I've always loved the franchise, and getting to play as Master Chief to smack around grunts just sounds like a lot of fun. And not many people know about this, but 343 did actually make and publish a Halo VR game, sorta. In 2017, they released Halo Recruit, something you can still download for free and play, but it's not exactly good or engaging, but it does exist. Now, some sort of sad news before we get on to Meta. 2 classic VR games have just been announced they will be shutting down forever. Spark, a Tron-like competitive game, and Eve Valkyrie. Both announced they will be shutting down their servers on August 5th, and no longer will anyone be able to play these games. And this is kind of sad because Valkyrie is an important part of VR history. It was one of, if not the first VR game ever announced, especially by a large publisher, and while, to be honest, I haven't launched the game in years, I do look back on it fondly. And it is kind of crazy to think that these games released 6 years ago. VR really has come a long way in that time. And while it is kind of weird, champ, that people paid for these games, and I'm sure there are at least a couple people that still play Eve Valkyrie, actually, I just looked, and yeah, Valkyrie has sat at 0 players for a long time now, so yeah, some pretty lonely servers, and I get why they're shutting them down. I guess all I can say is rest in peace, Valkyrie and Spark. You will forever be remembered in VR history as some of the very first full VR games ever. But now onto the big game-changing present tense. You may or may not be aware of the weird debacle that is the Oculus account system. In the past, for VR content, we had Oculus accounts, and these were standalone accounts that you could use for anything and everything VR, and you didn't need anything else tied to it. It was similar to a Steam account or Xbox Live account. Then in 2020, Facebook changed everything when they started requiring all new VR users and most old users to switch to a Facebook account for everything. Practically gone were old Oculus accounts, and I'm not sure how many people actually didn't buy a Quest or get into VR because a Facebook account was required, but the decision at the very least certainly pissed a lot of people off, especially because it was pretty much promised that this exact thing would never happen. But last year at Connect, Meta announced that the Facebook login requirement will be lifted eventually, and nearly a year later, it's finally happening. In fact, a lot is happening. It's not just account-related stuff, it's general terms of service, social VR changes, and an entirely new outlook from Meta that appears to be a move to distance itself from its Facebook roots. And all of this change is happening really fast, way faster than these things normally happen. And in fact, if you don't make a Meta account by January 1st, 2023, migrating everything over, your headset will pretty much cease to function until you do. So here's all the details because there's kind of a lot. Every single user will be required to make a Meta account. You can now optionally link Instagram or a Facebook account, but it's not required. Any previous purchases can be transferred from an existing Facebook account, then unlinked. This is also the same if you have an Oculus account right now. Oculus accounts will just be migrated to a Meta account. And Meta makes it pretty clear that this new Meta account is not a social media account. Instead, just a way to view and manage your purchased apps. It's still unclear whether there's a real name policy attached to Meta accounts like there was on Facebook accounts, but considering you'll likely be adding payment information, you'll probably be adding that anyways. But whether it's enforced, I'm not sure. In general, your Meta profile is not social in any way. But you're not just required to make a Meta account to manage your games, you'll also be required to make a Meta Horizon profile, which is a social profile, but it's much closer to something like an Xbox Live account with username, profile picture, avatar, and follow system similar to Twitter rather than a friend system. And like I said, this is obligatory. If you want to use your Quest or Oculus software, you're gonna have to make the switch starting next month, and you'll have until pretty much 2023 to do it. And you know what? This is good. This is a good change. I don't honestly think anybody in the world except for Facebook higher-ups thought that linking a Facebook account to use a Quest was a good idea. And I don't think anybody liked having to do it. I mean, I don't even want a Facebook account, to be honest. But I had to have one to use a Quest too, and that was pretty much the rule for everybody. But now, that requirement is completely gone. But this is where it kinda gets a little weird. There are going to be a lot of people that say, this is no different. Facebook is Meta. A Meta account is a Facebook account just under a different name. And, well, sort of, but not really. I mean, yes, it is an account with the company Meta, so is a Facebook account. And your data isn't safer with either one. But the fact is, it's not a Facebook account. It's not a social media account where, for example, getting banned on one affects the other. It's its own collected thing that for now is only being used for VR purposes. So it's not the same thing. And this is a big win for VR users. We all asked for 2 years for Facebook to remove the Facebook login requirement, and they did. And there are still going to be people that are unhappy, but I think those people will just be unhappy with anything Meta does ever. And frankly, we've taken a lot of L's in the VR community, but this is a W. And I get it. I still can't shake the fact that none of this had to happen anyways. We started with Oculus accounts, then we had to make Facebook accounts, now we're having to migrate to totally new accounts. It's weird, and I still have to do some fine print reading, but at least on the surface, we got what we wanted. Facebook is gone from the Quest. And this doesn't mean Meta's in the clear or that there's some knight in shining armor. The only thing they really did here was fix the problem that they created, so of course, we can still be critical. But I think in a lot of ways, all of our voices and discontent over the past couple of years was a big part of this decision. And I'm pretty proud of everyone in the VR community that spoke out against this decision originally. We can make changes, this is kind of proof of it. But I also just realized if 15+ million people are forced to make Meta Horizon accounts, doesn't that instantly make Meta Horizon the biggest VR-centered social platform out there? Was this just their plan all along? I don't know, but hey, no more Facebook tied to Quest, so that's good. And there's a whole new Quest update to talk about, but first, it's time for a meme break! You're enjoying some sweet VR, having a great time until you need a swing. Then this happens. Look, just watch your link cables. I know I've done this a few times. But now, back to the news. The Quest and Quest 2 are about to receive the newest software update V42, bringing just a couple new features to the table. Although Meta did have a weird way of wording this update, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And now we know, it's our latest Meta Quest software update V42. I mean, if new achievements and parental supervision is the meaning of life, but yeah, I get it, 42. Anyways, the new update brings Oculus Move achievements, allowing you to attain fitness badges daily based on your movement in VR, and also some new features to the parental supervision tools, allowing parents to turn off social features in Horizon. A fairly modest update, definitely doesn't need a whole video on its own, but I do think V43 and 44 are going to bring some pretty big things. Although I do have to ask, what is up with things still being called Oculus, like Oculus Move? Not that I'm complaining, I guess. I mean, I like Oculus. But everything has shifted to being called Meta. It makes no sense that a feature being addressed in a new update is still being called Oculus when you've shifted everything else. I don't know, it's just kind of confusing. But now, rejoice Valve Index users, finally 3 years after launch, it looks like we may have a wireless solution for the Index if you have quite a bit of money to cough up, that is. Nofio just announced a Kickstarter campaign to launch a Wi-Fi 6E transmitter for the Valve Index to allow wireless PC VR to play space up to 5 to 10 meters. Also stating that this is the lowest latency wireless video on the market, getting latency down to as low as 5 milliseconds. The module attaches to the back of the Index and has a battery life of around 2 hours, give or take. But you could always just use a bigger battery bank, I suppose. But this thing just isn't going to be coming in cheap. Nofio is expecting the price to be between $399 and $499, almost half the price of the Index kit itself, and I don't know about this, to be honest. Of course, it's a dream to have a wireless Index, but that's quite a chunk of change to spare, and I'm gonna have to try it out for myself and make a video on it when it does launch before I can really tell if it's worth it for that price. It's just a little embarrassing for, I don't know, the hardcore PC VR enthusiast that a Quest 2 is cheaper and wireless than the wireless edition for the Index, but the Index having native Lighthouse tracking does make it appealing. I don't know, like I said, I'm definitely wanting to get my hands on one before I have too much of an opinion, but I'm excited, and they're planning on shipping Q1 of 23. But in other fun Valve news, this July 18th is the start of Steam VR Fest, a big celebration of Steam VR titles where you'll probably see a ton of VR games go on sale. So if you've had your eyes on a game or two, or your headset has been gathering dust or only used for VR chat, this coming week may be the time to snag it up. So I've been pretty excited about Meta's upcoming headset, Project Cambria, and this is for a variety of reasons. It was announced to have eye tracking, face tracking, improved comfort, new controllers, and a few other nice things I've been wanting in VR. Well, we have some new information on it. Looks like officially this is going to be called the Quest Pro, but that's kind of unofficial as well. Not Quest 2 Pro, just Quest Pro. Also, it may be significantly more expensive than we were all expecting, like significantly more expensive. Poised to be a very professional mixed reality headset competing more with HoloLens than a Quest or Index. And according to a few sources, it may not ship with controllers, which is kind of one of the things I was most excited about. The new controller is ditching the Quest tracking ring for their own onboard camera tracking. Instead, the Pro will use hand tracking as its primary input. This, of course, isn't confirmed, but it has been reported to be this way. And now I'm kind of thinking, how expensive is this thing really going to be? Like $600 expensive or $2,000 expensive? Because some reports are leaning towards the latter, which, unless the Pro really offers something spectacular, that kind of kills a lot of the hype I originally had for it. I don't know, how much would you pay for a Quest Pro realistically? I guess we'll all have to see. I think for me, maybe around the $700 to $800 mark is where I would draw the line, but what about you guys? But now it's time for question of the week from Air1. Given that the VRChat team isn't really updating the game to remove bugs and crashers, would an alternative game be a good idea? So I'm not trying to make VRChat out to be some perfect app, because it's certainly not. There's a lot that can be better, but VRChat is growing pretty darn fast, and with that growth, you're gonna have a lot of people trying to exploit the game or app to make other people's experience worse. And it's more the people's fault doing these things to other people than it is the VRChat team. Right now, the best way to stop this is to get really good at blocking malicious people fast, or at least hiding avatars. It's a band-aid solution, and VRChat could do a lot more, but I can't really imagine a VR social app as free and open as VRChat not having these sorts of problems. People are just kind of mean. People are also really nice, but you know, they're also mean. However, if you are seeking alternatives that may have different sorts of players, Chill Out VR and Neos both exist, and they're awesome on their own. I just prefer VRChat for now. And that's question of the week. Leave your own down below, and I may just answer yours next. I do want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas. I couldn't do any of this without you. And don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.